Hello everybody, welcome to the show. Please hit the subscribe button and give this episode a thumbs hell. Watch the screen begins in darkness, a soft hum rising like a heartbeat, slow, steady, almost wary, the way someone breathes before telling a truth they have avoided for years, the way someone prepares to peel off a mask worn for far too long, and into that darkness a faint spotlight widens, revealing Alana Thompson sitting alone on a wooden chair, her hands folded loosely, her gaze lowered, her breath uneven. She whispers that she's ready, not because the world insisted, but because she has finally discovered the courage to see herself beyond the glitter, beyond the laughs, beyond the persona that once made her famous and yet slowly swallowed her childhood whole. She says her name quietly at first, Alana, just Alana, no honey boo boo introduction, no exaggerated tone, no camera-trained theatrics, just her real voice, a little unsure, a little fragile, but undeniably honest. She says she has lived two parallel lives for as long as she can remember, one for the cameras, sharp and loud, bursting with personality like a firecracker, and the other one hidden, gentler, more introspective, unsure of who she was allowed to become when the world had already decided who she should be. The documentary cuts to old footage, pageant stages, colorful dresses, judges smiling, her mother cheering, crowds laughing at punchlines she didn't always understand, producers nudging her to repeat a funny line, the world replaying clips 1,000 times, making a character out of a little girl who barely knew why people found her so entertaining. As the montage fades, Alana's voice says she doesn't blame anyone, not her family, not the viewers, not even herself. She just didn't know how to separate herself from Honey Boo Boo, because when millions greet you as a character, you start thinking maybe that character is the only version of you that matters. She walks through a dim hallway filled with framed photographs, early pageant wins, magazine covers, publicity events, behind-the-scenes snapshots of smiling faces and colorful props, and she stops at a picture where she is 6 years old, holding a trophy bigger than her torso, her eyes wide with excitement or fear or something in between. She touches the frame and says she remembers how heavy the trophy felt, not physically, but emotionally, because she realized winning made people happy, and that happiness became her responsibility. As she speaks, her tone deepens, not sad exactly, but reflective, as if she is finally acknowledging a weight she had carried so long it became invisible. She says the hardest part was hearing people talk about Honey Boo Boo as if she weren't real, as if she were a cartoon character, a joke, a stereotype, something detached from the child behind the catchphrases. She remembers walking into grocery stores and hearing whispers, laughter, imitations of her voice, people expecting her to act like her TV self at all times. She says she would smile, laugh, perform, but inside she wondered if anyone would ever want to know who she was when she wasn't performing. Cut to a scene in a small Georgia kitchen, warm sunlight spilling across the table, Alana sitting with a cup of tea. She says she used to rehearse normal conversations because she wasn't sure what normal even meant for someone like her. She says growing up famous doesn't feel like growing up at all. It feels like living inside a funhouse mirror where every reflection is distorted, one reflection loving the spotlight, another hiding from it, another confused why strangers feel entitled to her life. The camera follows her outside into a backyard full of old toys, rusted swings, forgotten chalk drawings on concrete, remnants of childhood caught between reality and showbiz. She walks slowly, fingers tracing the chains of the swing. She says she didn't lose her childhood, but it didn't feel like everyone else's. She had cameras filming her first heartbreak, arguments, messy family drama, vulnerabilities she didn't understand but the world consumed like entertainment. She says she is proud of surviving that, of not letting it break her spirit even when the pressure felt unbearable. A soft breeze lifts her hair as she says she began to realize around age 12 that the world wasn't laughing with her anymore. They were laughing at Honey Boo Boo, an exaggerated version of her that she could no longer relate to. She says she struggled with identity, with guilt, with feeling obligated to keep up a persona that didn't fit her growing self. She says she would look in the mirror and ask who she really was, the confident pageant star or the quiet girl who loved reading at night, who wanted privacy, who wanted to build dreams outside the spotlight. Transition to a dimly lit room, shelves filled with journals, each marked with a year. She picks one from when she was 13, reading aloud a line where she wrote that she was scared the world would never let her change. She says she used to fear that if she dropped the Honey Boo Boo persona, she would disappear, become irrelevant, be forgotten. She says fame is a strange thing. It makes you believe the version of yourself the world prefers is the only version allowed to exist. Then comes a turning point. She describes being 15 and realizing she didn't want to stay frozen in time. She wanted to grow, stumble, rise, evolve. She says she felt trapped inside a character costume even when the show ended, even when cameras stopped rolling, because society kept replaying her childhood as if those clips defined her future. She says she wanted to wake up one day and simply be Alana, a teenager with dreams, fears, hobbies, mistakes, and complexities no catchphrase could express. The documentary shows her in a classroom, learning, laughing with friends, writing essays, taking notes. She says school was the first place she started to feel real again, not because people didn't recognize her, but because some of them finally asked about her interests, her future, her opinions, not about Honey Boo Boo, not about the show, not about memes they saw online. She says that small shift helped her breathe, helped her reclaim pieces of herself. She talks about the struggle of redefining her identity online, where people still comment with old catchphrases, old jokes, old stereotypes. She says she tries to be patient because people remember what they saw, not what they didn't. But she also says she deserves the right to grow, to shed an outdated version of herself, to rewrite her narrative with honesty rather than expectation. The camera shows her walking down a quiet sidewalk, evening light softening the edges of the world. She says she used to hate silence because it felt empty. Now she loves it because it gives her space to hear her own thoughts. She used to fear obscurity. Now she embraces anonymity in small moments, like grocery shopping without being recognized, or sitting in a cafe without whispers. She sits on a porch swing, legs curled under her, saying the biggest challenge is convincing people she's not running away from her past. She's simply evolving. She respects what Honey Boo Boo gave her. Opportunities, experiences, confidence, but she cannot remain a childhood character forever. She says she wants the world to see that the girl behind the personality is strong, thoughtful, determined, someone who dreams of college, meaningful work, independence, stability, and a life defined by her choices rather than scripts. The film cuts to interviews with family members, each talking about how Alana has matured, how she's more introspective, more grounded, more aware of who she wants to be. They say they've watched her break away from expectations, redefine boundaries, reclaim her future, and though the transition was painful at times, it was necessary. Back to Alana, she stands in her bedroom, walls decorated with photos of friends, inspirational quotes, college brochures. She says she's learning to separate her worth from public approval, learning to love the version of herself that doesn't need cameras to validate her. She says she no longer feels obligated to entertain the world. She wants to speak, not perform, to share, not showcase. A slow montage shows her cooking, studying, writing, laughing privately, moments that feel intimate and real. She narrates that the world may always remember Honey Boo Boo, but she hopes they will someday embrace Alana Thompson with equal enthusiasm. Not because she's dramatic or funny or controversial, but because she's human, evolving, authentic. As the documentary nears its closing moment, she sits once more in the wooden chair, tears glimmering but not falling. She says she is no longer asking whether Honey Boo Boo is gone. She is asking whether the world is ready to meet Alana, the woman she is becoming, the woman she is choosing to be. The camera zooms in slowly. She lifts her head, her eyes steady, her voice firm. She says the real Alana Thompson is emerging, not replacing Honey Boo Boo, but stepping beyond her, growing past old expectations, shaping a future where she is no longer a character but a whole person with limitless possibility. The day begins with a brightness so dramatic it feels like the sun decided to audition for a Broadway role, spilling across suburban Georgia where Alana Thompson, sunglasses too big for her face and confidence just the right size, marches down the sidewalk like she's late for a destiny she didn't sign up for, the warm air buzzing around her like excited gossip, and everywhere she walks people whisper Honey Boo Boo but she keeps saying nope, retired, discontinued, limited edition, no longer in stock. She steps into a convenience store with the kind of swagger someone gets after deciding to reinvent themselves overnight, pushing the door open with a flourish as the bell above jingles like a tiny hype man applauding her entrance. The clerk's jaw drops immediately because he recognizes her and freezes mid-scan holding a half-priced bag of chips like a sacred artifact. He stares, blinking, wondering if he's hallucinating or if the universe just served him a celebrity cameo without warning. Alana walks straight to the drink cooler, narrating loudly to herself about hydration, glow-up energy, and the spiritual importance of minding your own business. She grabs a bottle, spins around dramatically, bumps into a stack of promotional cardboard stands, and the entire display collapses in slow motion like a tragic opera scene. The clerk gasps, she shrugs, says gravity has beef with her and she refuses to apologize for physics. A kid in aisle 3 peeks over the cereal boxes whispering, "Mom, is that Honey Boo Boo?" She yells back, "Not anymore, sweetie, I'm the updated patch version. Bugs fixed, personality upgraded, no refunds." The kid looks confused, probably thinking she speaks in riddles. 2 teens at the back, one holding slushies, one holding existential dread, start filming her, asking her to say her old catchphrase. She squares her shoulders, walks over like a queen preparing to address peasants, leans in close and says, "I don't do catchphrases before noon unless there are snacks." Then she grabs one of their slushies, takes a sip, says thank you for your donation. The teens erupt laughing and chasing her around the store like she's an endangered species escaping captivity. She runs behind a shelf yelling, "Y'all need hobbies and privacy classes." The clerk finally gathers courage and steps forward, hands shaking, and asks is Honey Boo Boo gone for real. She squints dramatically, placing a hand over her heart like she's about to deliver Shakespeare, saying Honey Boo Boo is not gone, so she is resting peacefully in retirement, fed nightly with leftover pageant trophies and nostalgia, but Alana is out here living her best unbothered life. She taps the counter twice like she's dropping profound wisdom. The clerk nods slowly as if he's witnessing a rebirth or an eclipse. A woman enters with a shopping cart, sees Alana, screams "Oh my lord," and crashes into a display of salsa jars, glass shattering everywhere like celebratory fireworks. She keeps yelling, "I can't believe this, I'm meeting Honey Boo Boo in the salsa aisle." Alana holds up both palms chanting "Not Honey Boo Boo, new model, same warranty." She helps the woman up, who insists she sign her forehead with a marker she conveniently keeps in her purse. Alana declines politely, saying she has retired from autographs on human skin, but she can sign a receipt if necessary. Meanwhile, someone at the back calls someone get a microphone, she's doing a TED Talk. Another person starts live streaming, if receiving sacred enlightenment. She approaches the counter to pay, but the clerk refuses her money, declaring it an honor to serve the legendary Honey Boo. She raises a finger sharply. He corrects himself. "Alana, just Alana, the real you," she smiles proudly. Just then the sliding freezer door behind her suddenly pops open and a man falls out because he was apparently trying to record her secretly from inside. She stares at him like he's an alien. He stammers, saying he's been inside for 3 minutes trying to get the perfect angle for TikTok. She shouts, "Sir, that is not normal behavior, you need therapy and a warm jacket." The entire store bursts into laughter. The chaos crescendos when someone wheels in an entire cart full of items begging her to endorse them, from chips to laundry detergent to a random pineapple. She waves her hands, "Unless the pineapple is paying me." They all laugh. She sighs dramatically, leans on the counter, and announces Honey Boo Boo is not gone, y'all. She's just asleep like a retired superhero watching the world from a hammock. But me, Alana, I'm the one paying for groceries and dealing with strangers falling out of freezers. So please update your mental software. She grabs her drink, sachets toward the exit, stops at the door, flips her hair, and shouts in a grand theatrical voice, "The real Alana Thompson has emerged. The legend of Honey Boo Boo will remain in history class. Thank you for attending my chaotic TED Talk." And with that she strides out into the sunlight as the entire store applauds like they just witnessed the finale of a reality show they didn't know they were part of. Alana grins, thinking maybe reinvention isn't about changing yourself, but letting the world catch up. The rain begins quietly, a soft pattering against the wide Georgia fields, the sky gray but gentle, the air thick with the scent of wet earth and nostalgia, and on a long winding road where memories cling like mist, Alana Thompson walks slowly, her hoodie pulled close, her breath steady but weighted, every step echoing a question she has asked herself for years, a question whispered by her like a ghost from a past she never chose. And as she walks, she steps over puddles reflecting the sky like shattered mirrors, each one holding shadows of her past, flashes of pageant stages, cameras swirling around her like storm winds, her mother's booming voice cheering, producers urging her to repeat funny lines, people online dissecting her every move as if she were a symbol instead of a girl. She whispers to herself that she doesn't regret any of it. But she also doesn't belong to that world anymore. She is not a glitter-coated persona destined for memes. She is Alana, an evolving story still being written. As she reaches her house, her older sister Pumpkin sits on the porch, rocking gently on an old wooden swing that creaks with every shift, a familiar sound, a memory of childhood summers and secrets whispered in the dark. Pumpkin looks up, sees the heaviness in Alana's eyes, and says, "Come sit. Tell me what's stirring in that head of yours." Alana sits beside her, knees tucked in, the rain-softened wind brushing their faces, and she admits quietly that she feels torn between gratitude and exhaustion, between love for the girl she once was and fear that the world will never see her beyond that caricature. Pumpkin listens without interrupting, her presence warm like a blanket. She tells Alana that growth always scares people because it forces them to update their idea of you, and most people cling to old versions of others because change demands effort, empathy, understanding, but Alana deserves to grow anyway, deserves the right to outgrow a childhood persona that became too heavy to carry. The scene shifts to evening, the air glowing amber as fireflies dance around the backyard, their light soft and hopeful. Alana sits in the grass, watching them with a bittersweet smile. She remembers being a child running barefoot chasing these tiny stars, laughing without cameras following. She remembers thinking the world was small and safe, before fame twisted that innocence into spectacle. She whispers to the fireflies that she misses simplicity, misses versions of herself that never got a chance to exist. Inside the house the lights flicker softly, the smell of dinner drifting through the air, but Alana remains outside a moment longer, collecting her thoughts, holding them gently like something fragile. She knows the world still calls her Honey Boo Boo, still sees the child she once was, frozen in time like a photograph no one bothers to replace, but she also knows she is not that girl anymore, she has grown through pain, through resilience, through self-discovery, shaping herself into someone wiser, grounded, determined. Later she finds herself in her room, walls filled not with old pageant trophies but with college brochures, sketches, personal goals taped beside her mirror. She sits at her desk, pulls out a journal worn at the edges, and begins writing a letter to herself, a letter she has avoided for years. She writes about the weight of expectation, the confusion of identity, the fear of being trapped in a story she didn't write. She writes about wanting freedom, autonomy, dreams untouched by fame. She writes about reclaiming her narrative. Her handwriting trembles at first but becomes steadier as she pours her truth onto the page. She writes that Honey Boo Boo is not gone. She is simply resting in the past where she belongs, respected, acknowledged, but no longer in control. She writes that Alana Thompson is emerging not as a new person but as a real one, unfiltered, uncaged, unapologetic. The rain stops, the world turns quiet, and she feels something shift within her, like a door unlocking, like a breath released after years of holding it in. She closes the journal, rests her hands on the cover, and looks at her reflection, not as a character, not as a headline, but as a young woman reclaiming her life. In the final scene she steps outside again, the night sky vast and star-filled, the air cool and clean. She whispers softly to the darkness that she is ready, ready to be known, not as Honey Boo Boo, but as Alana, steady, strong, evolving. She lifts her chin, breathes deeply, and walks forward into a future that finally belongs to her. The world feels strangely quiet the morning Alana Thompson wakes with the unshakable sense that something inside her has shifted. Not a dramatic explosion, not a sudden revelation, but a slow and steady rising, like the sun lifting itself over the horizon after a long storm. She sits up, breathes deeply, and realizes that for the first time in years she isn't carrying the weight of a character she outgrew long ago. She isn't rehearsing old lines. She isn't adjusting herself to match an image frozen in the public's memory. Instead she feels present, grounded, real, and she whispers to herself that today might be the day she finally steps forward as Alana, unfiltered, unperformed, unapologetic. She walks across her room, fingertips brushing the framed photographs of a childhood lived partly in the spotlight, partly in confusion, pictures of pageants, trophies, bright dresses, camera crews, interviews, and the loud world she once navigated without understanding its consequences. She doesn't hate those memories, she simply feels distant from them now, like watching an old movie starring a younger version of herself, a version who didn't know how long her identity would be borrowed by the world. As she ties her shoes and steps outside, the fresh morning air feels like a welcome, the quiet street like an invitation, the sky wide and open as if encouraging her to rewrite her narrative. She walks into town, her hoodie pulled up, not to hide but to stay warm, passing by familiar shops where people used to shout Honey Boo Boo without hesitation. But today something is different. Today people look, pause, observe, almost sensing a shift, as if the girl they thought they knew has changed. Colors, grown edges, form depth. She steps into a small cafe, the scent of warm pastries and fresh coffee greeting her like a comforting memory she never had time to form during the chaos of childhood fame. The barista looks up, recognizes her, and instead of shouting her old nickname, simply says "Morning Alana," as if acknowledging a truth the world took a decade to accept. She smiles back, a soft, grateful smile that holds years of unspoken relief. She sits at a table by the window, watching raindrops gather on the glass, remembering moments when life felt overwhelming, when Honey Boo Boo overshadowed everything she tried to become. When people didn't see the person behind the persona, she exhales slowly, letting those memories settle instead of sting. She knows now that she doesn't have to erase her past to build her future, she only has to own her story. Her phone buzzes with a message from a journalist requesting an interview about the return of Honey Boo Boo. She laughs quietly, shaking her head, typing back a single line. She's not returning, but I am, and she sends it without hesitation, feeling a spark ignite within her, confidence blooming in the places where doubt once lived. As she leaves the cafe, stepping back into the shifting weather, she notices a group of teenagers whispering nearby. One nudges the other to approach her, and the girl finally asks, "Are you still Honey Boo Boo, or are you like different now?" Alana crouches slightly to be eye level, her voice calm and sincere as she says, "I'm still me but I've grown. Honey Boo Boo was who I was as a child, but Alana is who I'm choosing to be now." The teens nod thoughtfully, as if understanding growth more clearly than adults often do.